Right, hi, and welcome to the channel, and I'll get right to it. This is a tutorial on how to build, or how I build my cabinetry for my customers, and this is actually for a kitchen of my own in the schoolhouse that we are renovating into a bed and breakfast. So this is going to be a two-part video in detail. It's a little bit long, but I've been asked over and over again to do more tutorial work on what I do. So this is my attempt at that. So I hope you enjoy, and look out for the second part to this one. And also the first part, which is mostly the machining of the cabinets in a time-lapse format, which will also be narrated. That's going to be out before this video. So if you want to see that, just I'll put a link in the description and you can check that out. So anyway, to start out here, most of it's going to be narrated real time as I was doing it, but this is just one cabinet I chose to explain the process, and it's been datoed and rabbited on top and bottom and the back for 3/4 inch carcasses on the main frame and a 1/2 inch rabbet in the back. It's being glued and clamped, and I'll begin explaining that coming up. So I hope this is what people are looking for, and I hope to do more of these in the future. And let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. So this is the bottom, that's the top, or vice versa, it doesn't matter, we're just making a box. And top and bottom are datoed into the sides. So what we want to do is we want to force these, we want to close up the gaps first by pulling them in this way. So that's going to squeeze and eliminate any gappage in the inside corners. So we do that on one side. Don't tighten these up, just snug them for a second. Both edges. Again, just snug them. And then very carefully use your back edge. So I like to line up the inside of the back. I don't line up the front because I can take the front down with a hand plane. So you just need to gently tap that down until we get that rabbet dead flush inside. So we're going to do that on both of these. And if your clamp is just right, it'll move enough to adjust it, but not enough to let it slide without pressure being put on it. Same thing here. And if you're afraid to do that and mar this up, then get a block of wood and use that. But as long as you keep your hammer flat and you're not pushing it too hard, it's not too bad. Okay. So now we've got the alignment done, so we've got a perfectly flat back here. Everything's lined up flush, and I've tightened these up to apply adequate pressure and squeeze that joint together. So now we need to pull it the other way because I have the gaps between the sides and the tops. Those need to be pulled tight as well. So we're going to grab another clamp and just go right down the side, right under the heels of these two clamps. And you don't have to use these K-bodies. You could do this with a bar clamp. You probably would need more clamps. These clamps are great because they provide so much clamping surface that I only need 4 clamps to do a finished clamp. So you can see I'm going to tighten this up, and it's going to pull that joint. You're going to see the glue squeeze out, and we now have a perfectly tight joint. There's no gaps. Our glue is good. After we've done those, Now these can come off. So these clamps, so your side-to-side clamps now, they're going to hold everything together because these are a temporary clamp to keep the other way tight while you clamp the other one. So we're going to pop these off on that side, and then we're going to flip this cabinet over, and we're going to repeat the same process, exactly the same as before. So we're going to put this clamp towards the edge, but not over the sides, and we're going to clamp this tight. We've already lined it up, so we don't have to line it up again. This side is already locked in place by the back of the cabinet we already clamped. So we're going to tighten these up, not crazy tight, just. I always make sure to keep my clamps, always try to keep your clamps so that your head is on the same side, because if if I clamp this clamp here and then I clamp the handle over here, there's no way to stand that cabinet up or move it around without making a mess. Same thing on this one. And clamp that one down. Then we take these off. And we take these off again. Take these off again. And tilt her up. Now we're ready to wash this one out. So let me show you how I was taught to wash cabinets out, and it works pretty good. It never changed. So we don't want glue. We don't want to start trying to squeeze the glue out, because when you try to wash that glue out, it's going to soak. And this is veneer core, so we don't want to saturate it to wipe it. So first, do a wipe like that. Wood glue is not going to soak into the wood if it's already wet. So the first thing we do is wipe the corners and create a wet layer around the glue, so that as you begin to scrape the corners out, you don't get glue soaking into your dry wood grain. And you can either use the rag to squeegee it out, or you can do what I'm doing here. If you do it this way, you have to be very careful that you do not leave chisel marks in the grain, across the grain, because that's going to be very hard to remove properly. So that's one way. I don't actually normally do that. I normally just use the rag and get in there really well and scrub the corner out. So if you get a good tight rag bead in the corner, you can basically get all of that glue out of there without taking any chances on your veneer with a chisel. Now you can use a sander for this, but if you have a good plane, that's what I like to use. Take all these edges, take your four inside faces of the back, and just knock them down. What this will do is excess glue can get fit down in there. It'll fill that instead of squeezing out. And also double check your fit. So we got a perfect fit that way. Check it this way. Glove fit. That's what we're looking for. All right. Chamfer those edges, because on veneer core plywood, when you do a glue up, when you're trying to squeeze this in, because this back on this is 1/2-inch plywood, it's going to square this cabinet for us, so we have a nice square cabinet when we're done. So we want this glove fit. So if you don't chamfer the edges on that, what can happen is you'll grab your little veneers here, because you typically end up in the center of your sheet. The center veneer is almost always going to be perpendicular, not with you, but perpendicular. So and you're trying to push it down, what it'll do is it'll grab fibers like this, and it'll pull these down into your back, and you'll end up with them down here into the channel, into your rabbet, and that's going to keep your back from sealing tight. So it's really important that you prep that back sheet so that when you glove fit it into this opening, it's just going to nestle in there. You're not going to have any of these fibers getting grabbed because you've eased the edge on the back. Alright, so I'm going to glue this. And like I was taught by a really good woodworker I worked for, better to overglue than underglue. You do not want your product failing because it's underglued. It doesn't take that long to wipe out excess glue, so don't try to cut any corners on your glue. Squeeze your back in here. Now, you don't have to nail this. I nail this. It's the way I learned when I was taught to do it. You don't have to do this, though. You can you could put blocking here, and you could clamp this front to back, and you could clamp this back in, and that would work just fine. All these nails are, at the end of the day, they're clamps. We're using the nails as a clamp. The clamp is going to hold the back in, is going to pin that down so that we have a nice tight cabinet back. Glue is doing all the work. All these nails are doing is they're pinching the back of the cabinet down tight and making all that glue squeeze out and giving us a good seal. And we want this back as tight as possible because this is the structure of our cabinet. So when we install this cabinet, you're going to be able to put a screw anywhere in this back, and it's going to be structural because it's been glued into a rabbet around the entire perimeter of the cabinet. So your half-inch back squares your cabinet, and it's also the structural element that allows you to screw it to your studs. And then, so sometimes you're going to see your middle's going to belly. So I like to grab a clamp and just throw a clamp in the middle. Just pull that cabinet body together in the middle, and then finish your nailing once you've, because you don't want your body splayed out in the middle because you're not going to get a good tight face. If you bend a nail like that, do not try to finish nailing it. Pull it out. If you try to nail a nail that's already been bent, you try to just straighten it real quick and finish it off, because plywood is much more susceptible to movement inside of the nail track. I've had those nails blow out inside my carcass before, so I've made it a policy to never finish a nail that has started to bend. And nobody ever sees this, so make sure you put some dents in there. After you get your nail set, use your hammer and divot that, because what you're doing is you're forcing that cabinet back down with the nail, and then the nail is going to pinch it in there. It's going to keep it held tight until that glue dries. Put this on.